Hello, this is Siri and you're listening to my favorite podcast, Not Real Art. I live for this shit cause it's totally lit.
Let's go!
Greetings, artists and art lovers. Welcome to the Not Real Art podcast, where we celebrate creative culture and the rise of the creative class. I am your host, Sourdough, and today I am joined by Michael Moore. And Michael is one of these people that I respect and admire because, they're at their core an artist, at their core a creative who creates and designs and fabricates amazing works of art as a side hustle while they're, working a full-time job. Michael is a hardworking guy. We kind of grew up in the same neighborhood back in the Midwest near Chicago on the south end of Lake Michigan. And we have some mutual friends who connected us via Facebook a while back. I saw one of Michael's artworks on Facebook, and I said, I want that. How much? I must have it. Sell it to me. And he said, sorry, it's sold. And I was like, don't. But I want to welcome, he's going to make me one, though. He promised. So he and that's the beautiful thing about being an artist, because you can make more arts, because that's what artists do. But without further ado, I want to welcome via Skype the one and only Michael Moore. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Scott. Thank you.
So great to have you on our little podcast here, Not Real Art. I'm grateful for our mutual friend, Chris Sulzer. Shout out to Chris for putting us together here today.
Hey, Chris. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Chris. Now, how do you and Chris know each other? Because you guys are both musicians. Were you gigging together? Is that how you guys initially connected?
We've played together just a couple little jams here and there where I'd go up and play with them. But I've known him for, like 20 years, and him being a guitar player, we always just mesh and talk. And every time I talk to him, it's always laughter. I see him and I just start smiling because I know it's going to be something funny.
Well, exactly. And Chris is just one of those, Chris is a good case for cloning. It's like people get excited, people get up in arms about the dangers of cloning. And then you meet a guy like Chris and you're like, wait, no, we need more of him. Let's clone this guy. But what I so appreciated about, and I've known Chris, I think we met initially in 84, 85 in band. I played alto. He was a drummer. He was a percussionist. And we played in jazz band together in high school. But Chris was just one of those guys from day one. He was an artist, multidisciplinary guy, a lot of tools and techniques in his toolbox. And so it was no surprise to me that he introduced us, because you are also one of those creative polymaths, because while sure you have a day job that pays the bills, you are probably consider yourself first and foremost a musician. And then you have this studio in your garage where you make artworks out of kind of found objects or vintage objects that have a kind of an industrial or military kind of aesthetic that I've seen. And so do I have that right? I mean, do you consider yourself an artist?
Yeah, definitely. It's a really weird thing that I even do this now, because to describe it, I started playing guitar when I was 9 or 10. So I'm 52 now, so I've played for a long time, and I'm not really in a band that plays out any longer. So somehow this is completely unplanned. It was probably over a year ago that I had a thing called a Nixie clock, and it's these Ukrainian tubes that light up. They're numerical. And I just had this little clock, and I had an old beat up wooden box, and I thought, hey, I'm going to put that in that box. And then I had another old clock that was broken. So I took the gears out, stuck all that on the box. And then I thought, that's pretty cool. My wife saw it. And then somehow I didn't even think about it. I just started making something else. Within a week, there were like 2 or 3 things just sitting there. And then my wife's like, well, where are you going to put those? And then I thought, maybe I should share them with people. Maybe they'd want them, and that's what I'm getting at, is it was so unplanned.
Yes.
But I've always had this artistic goal as a musician that all I wanted was to play maybe a solo or a guest guitar part on a song that was successful, and no one even know it's me. I don't want money for it, recognition at all, but just to people like the song and makes them feel good. And I think that would leave a little mark on the earth. Now, these things that I'm making are doing that immediately. I mean, people buy them, they take them home, and they're like little kids. It's like Willy Wonka world. People are laughing, and what is that? What does it do? You know, and 100 years from now, they're going to be sitting there, and someone's going to go, "What the hell is that thing?" So this is going in a house. It's going to be here when I'm gone or anywhere, and that's, to me, I am leaving a mark now without even thinking about how it happened. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, there is a certain whimsy to your artworks. I mean, when they sort of have that chameleon vibe, in that you sort of see them and you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, no, I think I know what that is. And then you look closely or more closely and you realize, well, wait a minute. No, that's not at all what I thought it was. Or it's this other kind of hybrid design that is composited of different elements, and there's this kind of whimsy to it, and sort of that's quite delightful and surprising.
That's really it. I've never done an art opening, and there was a coffee shop in Valpo. They have a different artist there every month. So it was a year ago. I saw a piece of art I wanted there, so I was on my phone trying to contact that person. And the people that have the coffee shop saw one of my gadgets. Oh, hey. Looking at my phone going, oh my God, what is that? That's incredible. That's art. You should bring those here. You should have an art opening. You should sell them. And I'm like, I've never done anything like that. So when I did that, it was exciting and weird and crazy. And, it's different than playing music and taking a break and saying hi to people. These people showed up, and there was an older lady that just literally looked at everything, and she goes, well, what do they do? What do they do? Well, they're kind of, they're lamps for sure. They light up and they make noise. I can have audio play on them. Pieces of them turn by motor, and it's kind of your imagination. I name every piece, but I've called one like an elixir that had this old fire extinguisher, and in my mind, it would drain into the old box, and it would build up pressure and come out another tube and out a fountain, and there was a gauge there. And I put a little shot glass under it, like you could drink this McMeans elixir machine. And when someone bought the first thing that sold, it was such a cool feeling. I'm like, I can't believe it. I don't care if I sell another one ever. The first, it was just,
it's sort of like, you are birthing these children and people are adopting your kids, and bringing them into their homes and raising them for you, or at least looking after them,
There's a couple of pieces. I'll send you the picture of this clock. This clock was 6 foot tall. It was in resale shop. It was $70. It looked, it was weirdly shapen, but it was like a gross yellow with little flowers all over it and everything. And I brought it home, painted it black, started working on it. And I worked on that thing for a few days. One morning I came out, it was 6 or 7 in the morning. I didn't put my shoes on even. I just went in the garage, started working. I think I drank water that day. I didn't even eat.
Just in the zone.
I know when I got done with that thing, though, I really was attached to it. And when I sold it, it wasn't heartbreaking, but it was a weird kind of, I felt a little remorseful that it was gone because I really liked it a lot. So sometimes there's a couple of pieces that you make and you don't even want to get rid of them,
Yeah, it's just too special. No, I totally get that. How many artworks do you think you've fabricated since you started working in your studio?
I would have to say probably 25 to 30. It's weird that I'll make one and sometime I'll take it to that coffee shop for it to be sold, or I'll just post it. But somehow every one that I make ends up somewhere gone.
Yeah, quickly.
There's only a couple here and that's it.
Right, right.
One or two.
So you have no inventory. Like literally you make them, they sell, on to the next. Wow, you're a lucky artist. A lot of artists are sitting on inventory that they wish would sell, you know.
I do have something funny I can tell you, because you can't make this shit up. I bought some old syringes from this place called Spill the Milk. Bought old syringes. They were glass, like German, and one said tuberculosis, you know, in a box.
Wow. Yeah.
So I took an old pharmacy box, put a light on it, a gauge, some wiring, a on-off switch, and I decided to put this syringe on it. And so I wired the syringe down. It was really tight, and I took the needle off and put a basketball needle on there so no one would get poked, of course. But
yes,
when I took the plunger out, I was trying to put it back in there, and I'm just going, you know, I'm in the zone. And so it won't go in there. So I literally licked the plunger and went to back in there, and I stopped dead in my tracks. I said, what did you just do, dude? You licked a tuberculosis plunger.
And next day, tuberculosis.
Would you do that? For $1,000, you wouldn't do it.
No.
And how do you explain that? Yeah, I got tuberculosis because I licked that. So I immediately, you know, I started looking up on my phone, and it says that, you know, the germs only last like 6 months or something. And I'm sure it was clean and everything, but it was a goodie.
Well, that's what happens when you're in the zone creating. Sometimes we jump before we look, we leap before we look. Well, I'm glad you survived that. That's called occupational hazard. You know, what would your HR department say about that?
I know. You fill out the form, and it usually says where I work. It says, what was an employee doing at the time of accident? There's a spot on a form for that. So.
Yeah. So what do you do, you know, to keep the lights on? Because I know you have a full-time gig. I thought I saw the name of the company that you're working for, but tell me what you do for a living in terms of keeping the bills on. What's your full-time gig?
It's definitely a hardcore job. As soon as I tell you, you'll know. It's I work in the coke ovens of the steel mill.
Yes.
Steel Burns Harbor, and I work in the coke plant there. Yep. And that is a rough and tumble place. The first time I went up there, I said, "There's no way I'm working here." And sure enough, it's 23 years later, and I'm still at the coke ovens. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, for those of us who grew up in the region, as we called it. I personally was born in Gary, Indiana, grew up in Portage, Indiana. I know you grew up primarily in Valparaiso, Indiana, and graduated, I think, from Valparaiso High School. But, you know, for those of us who grew up in that region, the economy is, and for our listeners' sake who may not know this, the economy is rooted in industry, and specifically the steel making industry. And so many of our fathers, grandfathers, uncles, cousins, great-grandfathers worked in those steel mills. And when I was growing up as a kid, I remember going on field trips to the steel mills to watch how steel gets made. And for our listeners who have never been in a steel mill, to watch how the steel gets made that fabricates our cars and our products in so many of the daily items that we use. It's quite eye-opening to see that process because it's dangerous, it's hot, it's dirty, and but it's remarkable as well. And you're in the belly of the beast at the coke oven. Is there cussing on this podcast? Yes. Fuck yeah, there's cussing. All right, because my nickname for that coke oven is the Devil's Asshole. Okay. That's what I called it, because I mean it's hotter than you can even fathom. I would invite anyone just to walk up there. They don't have to do anything. Just walk with me down on the top of that oven one time, and you get to the end of it, and you're going to be going, "Holy shit, I can't breathe." I've seen guys walking and their clothes just start burning. Right. Just literally just catch on fire. I mean, I've had a couple of times there, 2 times where I thought I might be dead, 2 times. And I don't talk to my family about it, because they'll worry and everything. But yeah, it's very loud. It's very hot, dirty. Yes, loud. But, yes. But I worked in production like 17 years. I ran all the machines there, but now I'm what is called a heater, and we just control the gas on the oven, how much of it, the mixture of it, the temperatures of it. And now I actually like my job. It's hard to believe I can even say that, because for 17 years, I really didn't like it. And that takes a weird kind of toll on you. But my dad worked in the mill for 38 years also.
Yes.
So
yeah, my dad was at U.S. Steel for 35 years. And my grandfather was at Bethlehem. No, my paternal grandfather was at Midwest Steel.
Yeah.
It was called then. And then we had dear friends that were at Bethlehem Steel. So it is core to the economy of where we're from, the steel industry. So many of my dear friends and people that I know work there. And, and so many of these people also have a passion outside of their work. For some folks, it's sports, some folks, it's music, some folks, it's art. And for some folks, it's all the above and then some. I know some fantastic dart players in Portage, Indiana. Say nothing of pool and foosball and all the other great fun pastimes that we participate in while we're knocking down some Budweisers and shots at the local pub there, dive bar. But so in your case, right? So you're working in this job that for 17 years you've hated. And your therapy, if you will, I'm guessing, your music and your art.
Yeah, absolutely. That I have so many things that I do outside of there. There's just not enough hours in the day. I do hunt, target shoot. I like to ride my bike and a motorcycle. I write and record. I do have a studio in the basement, so I do write and record here a lot. And I pick up the acoustic guitar every day, and then now I'm doing the gadgets. And some people are like, how do you have time to do that? But we work 4 days and then we have 4 days off. So you're literally off like half the year. And you add that up with your vacation days and everything. It's really too good to be true that we're paid so well. Our insurance is incredible. I never take it for granted. I think I'm blessed to be there. So, I'm definitely thankful for it. I've worked with some people that oddly that place becomes their entire existence, that they have nothing outside of there.
Yes.
I had 42 years, wouldn't leave. He's 70 years old and he's like, oh, I go to the movies by myself sometimes. And I said, travel. No, I don't go anywhere. I said, get in your car, drive somewhere. If you don't like it, go back. But that guy retired and his health went, you hear that a lot. A guy retires from the mill and then their health goes back like a year later. So, I think everybody needs to have a lot to do outside of there. Anyone. I feel like that's being alive,
Well, that's true. But we're talking almost about two different people, because in your friend's case that you're talking about, here's a guy who, he didn't have a compulsion or an obsession, or doesn't sound like he had something that he had to do. Artists have to create. I mean, artists can't help themselves but to create. This is their calling, right? This is what they were born to do. Yeah. And you almost have to get it. I've talked to some artists who say, I've just got to get it out of my system. Otherwise I'll smother, they'll choke. And, and in your case, right? I mean, you've played guitar your whole life. Art and creativity has always been a part of your life on some level. Now you're exploring this new aspect of your expression, your self-expression. And, I think that's an incredible thing because, of course, it's about quality of life. I mean, in our culture, there's so much rhetoric and so much bullshit around financial success and what success is or what kind of materialism or kind of car we're supposed to drive or kind of house we're supposed to live in. When in fact, really, in my view, I know a lot of wealthy people who are quite miserable. It is about being happy on the inside and having a quality of life. And, and I think to the extent, and it's different for everybody, but I know for artists and for people who are creative, having a creative outlet is key to having a quality of life and having happiness and joy in their life, because, it's just something we have to do. Yeah.
And you had said to me earlier at one time, feed the soul. And that's really what it is. we'll play out. I have a band that was called Digital Hair that was
Oh my God, I remember
Yeah.
Digital Hair. You were in Digital Hair. That's how
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Playing
So
guitars
Chad,
with the-
so you and
yeah,
Chad are boys.
Chad's my soulmate. Yeah.
Oh my God. Shout out to Chad, by the way.
That's yeah. I didn't even know you would know that. I'm like,
Holy shit. Digital Hair.
Yeah.
I saw you guys play.
That's awesome.
Are you
Did I have
fucking
hair?
kidding me? Like that was
Yeah.
like the late 80s or something?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Digital Hair, by the way, the name Digital Hair in 1986, 87, of course, was so, state of the art, futuristic, cutting edge, cool. The thought
I
of
hated
digital.
it. Weirdly, I didn't want to like the name. I got outvoted on it because I'll say, "Wait, what band are you in?" Digital Hair, and you always hear what? You got to say it again. Digital Hair. What the hell is that?
Oh my
And
God.
I did get the hair down to my ass at one time for real. Your guy saying, "I had hair down to my ass." I really did. When I started at the Coke ovens, I had it in a big long ponytail with about 20 wraps on it. And they called me Ponytail for like the first 3 years.
Of course they
that
did.
thing's going to get burned off your head.
Of course it is. Yes.
Yeah. No, but yeah, Chad and we're soulmates. I mean, he's like a brother to me. We've known each other since the middle of high school. We started playing together. So
yeah, I mean, to be clear about something, Chad and I we met, God, I don't even know. It had to be late 80s, but in our interactions were few and far between. But he's one of those people that you just like, from the get-go. And he's just a real deal. He's a heartfelt guy, sincere, smart, funny, obviously talented. And it's not even shit. I think we were texting on Facebook not too long ago, but I haven't talked to him in years, haven't seen him in years. But, in thinking back, always respected and admired the hell out of him, and I look forward to connecting again someday. We should, maybe we should do a 3-way podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm up for it.
And yes, I said 3-way.
Yeah, I know. I didn't say anything.
Whatever listener out there, he just said 3-way.
You quickly said podcast, though, so no one had a chance.
I saved it. Yeah, I'm perverted, but just not in that way. Well, that's cool. So right. So I didn't mean to interrupt. So you and Chad go back. You're in Digital Hair. You had this band.
Yeah, and we'll play out like a few times a year. Or there'll be the Craw Puppies. We started the band called the Craw Puppies when it was just Chad and I on the acoustic guitar. Now everyone around here knows who the Craw Puppies are. But what I was going to say is that just those 2 or 3 times a year that we play out, like the drummer lives in Texas now, the keyboard player's in Florida, the bass player is in Indianapolis. So we'll play in Indy. And last year we went to Texas and played, and this year we played in Florida. And when I do that, it's any musician will know, but when you're up there playing and all those people out there, it's like a sea of heads and faces, and they're all there to have fun. They're smiling, they're laughing, they're dancing. I've seen them cry. I've cried while I was playing a couple times. It's just like unbelievably, it's just cool as hell. And what I'm getting at is we do a gig like that, and I can feed off that, as I call it, for months. I can think about how it felt, how cool it was. And it's just, you can't buy that. That's in your soul.
Yep.
It's amazing. So musically, yeah, it's more emotional and soulful, but making these pieces and stuff, that this is a different kind of medium. And like I said, I never planned it, but it's a total new way for me to express myself. And, that, I guess that'll be my snacks in between for my soul, in between playing out, recording.
Yeah, it's there is a soulfulness to these artworks of yours that I've seen on Facebook, and I don't know that I would have used that word that day, but I think I tend to react to artworks that that move me and as I think back on how things resonate with me and how I have emotional connections to things, that more times than not, those things have a soulfulness, to them. Yeah. And that soulfulness, I guess, could come from any number of ways and any number of things. But There is a definitely a handcraftedness to them. There's obviously very much a human sort of humanity to anything that has soulful. And anyway, that's why I really appreciated the artworks and the pieces that I saw of yours, because I felt like there was a real humanity to them and a real soulfulness to them.
Well, I know I'm off now until Monday, so I might start building your light immediately.
Yes, get on that. Get on that right now. Matter of fact,
absolutely.
Matter of fact, hang up right now and we'll get to work.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Go. No, that's great, man. So to talk about what inspires you. I mean, you mentioned being in a resale shop where you saw this clock and you had a funky shape, but it was kind of ugly, and so you bought it and you've painted it and stuff. Obviously, you saw this clock. You were inspired by it. Where do you find your inspiration? How do what motivates you? Is there a particular rigor around, like, okay, I have a day off, I'm going to go look for inspiration, and you just start treasure hunting and going out into the world that way? Or is it that, you're at work one day working in the, near Satan's asshole, and you get inspired by one of his farts? I don't know.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
Yeah, when you think it's going to blow up, you get inspired to run. Even yesterday, I took my son to get ice cream. Then we saw this antique mall in Michigan.
How old's your son? How old's your son?
12. He's 12. I have 12. Declan is his name. And
Declan, shout out Declan.
Yeah, there's Declan, and Logan is 15. And so I started late, but
me too. I have two. I got you beat, my friend. I've got 2 under 6. I've got a daughter who's 6.5. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, she'll be 7. So 2 under 7, but a daughter who's 6.5 and a son who is 2. So yeah. So you're going to have to help me, because I'm screwed. But anyway, Logan and
Declan,
sorry.
Declan's a hard name to remember. I think Elvis Costello's real name is Declan, possibly. It's the Irish. Yeah, it's the Irish influence thing. But we went in that antique mall, and I looked at all kinds of stuff, walked around, and that place is huge. And the one thing I saw was this rusted box, and it had a gauge on the front of it, but it was like a little old oven type thing, because there was a tray you pull out that you would put either some sort of heat source in there. I don't know if it was coals, and you could bake something in it. So I looked at it, and it was only $18. And I'm like, this thing could be anything, but when it's all rusty and beat up like that, then I know I would bring it back here and put nothing. It has to be old, rusty things that go on it. Like, I would never put a brand new shiny screw in something like that. And I'd sit there and stare at it, and that's what I do. I stare at them and think, what should go on there next? How's this look? I never really keep track of the amount of time that I spend on them either. But, that was an inspiration to see that. And it's hard to say, it's the piece in itself. People ask me where I get things, and I'll go to a junkyard, or I've gone in some old buildings I probably shouldn't even be walking inside of. I found some gauges that said more products on them. My name.
Oh, you got to have those.
Yeah. But the building they were in, I was by myself. It was pitch black, and I started to get those out of there. And I'm like, I'm getting out of here, man, because if I fall,
the rubble would bury you.
No one's gonna have.
What happened to Michael? He disappeared under that rubble.
Yeah, maybe the only thing left would be that gauge. It says more on it. Yeah, I felt a weird thing in there, so I'm getting out of here. So, but yeah, the inspiration's kind of a hard thing to put into words,
Isn't it? I mean, because the muses come and go, man. I mean, and you don't know when they're going to hit you. I ask because, I'm just curious. Everybody's a little different. I know I could never predict where my inspiration comes from. I mean, in my Apple iPhone, in the Notes app, I think I have over 2,000 notes because, of course, I get inspiration and I make a note. And then I, never do anything with it. Maybe, 9 times out of 10. But, they just stack up. And you just don't know where these things come from.
I've never asked someone this, an artist or anyone, because what I'm getting at inspiration-wise is my mind, everybody's different. I think creative people, I know a lot of them, and you know them, and a lot of times people say they're crazy or they're strange or they're different, but that's what we are. We think differently. We see things differently. I can't imagine just hearing a song and going, "Oh yeah, that's good." No, I got to hear every little note of it, every nuance, every, I can find the mistakes. I can find places where they punch vocals and guitars in and stuff. But this is what I'm getting at is I've sometimes when I can't fall asleep, I would like to ask another artist this, if they've ever been this way or feel this way. Can't fall asleep because you're thinking of everything. I've tried the so hum mantra and it works, but sometimes I'll literally just say, okay, go. And I'll let my brain go. And I visualize just anything you could possibly even think of, just starts going like a carousel. It's like, I'll picture the end of a rusted screw, then a basketball, then blade of grass comes, then smoke, then, all this stuff. And all of a sudden I fall asleep because I'm not thinking about anything in particular directly, but all these things are just popping in my head.
Sounds like you're having an LSD flashback.
I know. It's like the tail starts wagging the dog right then and it's over. But I want to know. I wonder if there's other artists that have that.
I think so.
I know it sounds strange,
No. I mean, it's
unknown.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you don't know where this stuff comes from, and when you're inspired, you're energized. It's hard to sleep if you're energized, and you have to kind of lean into it sometimes, Yeah. And hopefully, we're able to capture those ideas and that inspiration and do something with it. I was listening to someone talk the other day, the author, forgetting his name right now, but he wrote a kind of best-selling book called Steal Like an Artist. And he was saying, sort of laughing about how, if he's inspired and he writes a note, but he doesn't, take that note to the next level within 24 hours, like, unpack that note, write it in his journal, really kind of capture the inspiration, he'll find the note days or weeks later and look at it and go like I have no idea what this means. It's like oh yeah, I know this was brilliant when I thought of it, but I can't even remember it now.
That's amazing. It's so far gone that he doesn't even have a connection to it anymore.
Well, and that it is so fleeting, right? I mean, I it's funny. I have out of those 2,000 notes on my phone, I know a good third of them. If I looked at them, I'd be like, what the hell was I thinking? What does rusty dog hair mean? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But at the time, rusty dog hair was like a great idea for, I don't know, a children's book or something,
Yeah. I know.
Do you think of yourself as an artist? Like, really? Like when people ask you, Michael, who are you? What do you do? Do you describe yourself as an artist, musician? How do you think of yourself?
Just from being a musician for so long, it's usually a musician or guitarist.
Sure.
What do you play? And a lot of people say, what style do you play? And the answer to that is any style. And because music's been that way for me, I can pick up the electric guitar one day and I'll start. Everything's creative. Everything is new the first half hour. You start playing just whatever comes to my head, out of my hands, and it could sound like Rage Against the Machine or Tool. And then the next thing it sounds like Peter Frampton or the U2 or the Cure or the Cult. It's like new wave. There's rock, whatever style I play, or folk guitar, like the band Wilco. I love them a lot. So that
well, isn't Jeff Tweedy one of your collectors?
Yeah, I took a guitar there once, and he signed the head of it, and I got to go to their loft, and that place was sensory overload. I mean, that's where they do all the rehearsing, the recording of all these songs that I love. So when I was in there, I was shitting myself. I mean, I would have liked to have just sat down in a chair and just stared at the wall for a half hour because I was about to explode, And so I made.
Sounds like you were very inspired.
Oh yeah, there was but I made this really big old radio, and I'll send you a picture of it. I put a pre-recorded 5 minutes of Orson Welles. He did a broadcast in like 1938, War of the Worlds, that freaked a bunch of people out. Are you familiar with that? Maybe it was like,
Oh yeah.
it was in 38. So I put that on that. If you push the button, it starts playing that recording. And it had like a, bicycle light on, a bunch of really weird things. And I decided I wanted to give that to them. And I named it Orson. And every one of these things that I make, I do draw a blueprint, like a fake blueprint of it.
Oh, very cool.
And like people take a picture with the print on their wall, and
Nice.
there's always a name tag. So I went there and I said, hey, I want to give this to them. So I got to go in the loft again, of course. So, I like set that
smart.
down.
By the way, that's very George Costanza of you.
Yeah.
That, I'm just going to leave something behind. In this case, you're bringing something. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. I felt like they couldn't say no,
Yeah,
well, this
that's
guy's
right.
giving us something. And Jeff Tweedy wasn't there. So, I set it down, and the guy that works there, his name is Mark. He's incredible. He takes care of the place, and he was laughing, amazed at it. So I left. I said, just send me a picture of him with it or sometime,
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes later, the picture pops up on my phone, and I'm like, holy shit, there he is. It's Jeff Tweedy. And he's holding my thing. And it was like Santa Claus came, like I was there. He wasn't there. I left, but there he was. And so I had this picture, a couple of pictures of Jeff with that piece of art. And I've never put it on Facebook or anything because they don't really want you to take pictures of the inside of the loft. And I feel like I should have to ask permission because I don't want it to look like he's endorsing. But I said, what did he say about it? And the guy, Mark Greenberg, his name, was like, oh, he busted up. He said, what the hell is this? And he turned it on. I was laughing, and it's still in their loft. And Mark says he wants that Jeff wants to take it home and have it in his house. So for me to have that in his hands and to go in his house, that's just insane. I mean, that's goosebump city for that one.
Well, that's the ultimate sign of approval, isn't it? And validation and the highest praise, right? When somebody says, no, I want that in my home.
Yeah. I idolized him, and that group. I think they're amazing. And so for him to see that and to get him busted up and laughing and then to want that, that's like, it's priceless for sure.
Very cool. Well, congratulations on that. That's a really cool story. I mean, how badass is Wilco, right? I mean, come on.
They're amazing. I mean, yeah, that's a great band without a doubt. And that's what people will say, that's what I mean by who do you listen to? Who do you sound like? One thing I was going to mention that I didn't is, and you've probably heard this before, but as a musician, people ask me, am I an artist? Yes, I am. The thing that I think about is knowing other like guitarists. Well, this guy plays just like Eddie Van Halen. He can play just like him, and all the people that can do that, and they're book smart musically, technically, but they can't. I ask, well, what do they make? What do they write? When I see someone has a hit song, I'll look it up. Who wrote it? And it's everybody's name. There's like 7 people on there, not even the person that sang it. So in my mind, I don't mean to sound negative, but that's not an artist to me. That's somebody that, here you go, sing this. Okay, have a nice day. Here's your money. It's about being able to create something. There's people that can play amazing, but they can't really think anything up. Nothing. It's just paint by numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've probably heard that before, but.
No, it is interesting, right? Because you have, people who are incredibly competent, right? Technically, or they can read music, they can play music, they have obviously great artistic talent. But when it comes to imagining, developing, producing, manifesting something original, and, sure, nothing new under the sun, and everything's appropriated and everything's sort of inspired by something else. And okay, sure, I get that originality is a debatable concept. But the point is that some people just have a harder time or simply cannot, produce something on their own that is entirely of their own imagination. But they're on this earth to maybe help other artists realize their vision or realize or to simply entertain. I mean, a lot of musicians, they're cover bands, like they can't write their own stuff, but they can play the hits very well and entertain a lot of people and give people a lot of joy, and that's cool too.
Yeah,
Now, are they
exactly.
artists or are they entertainers? Is if you're an entertainer, are you an artist? I mean, it's interesting. I think there's kind of a continuum. It's kind of a spectrum of where you are in terms of being an artist and your relationship to originality. What is that? And listen, I mean, I can't do any of it, so who am I to judge?
I know.
Hell, I can't even sing in the shower. My shower gets pissed. The fucking water goes cold and it kicks me out. So we were talking about music with Wilco. I mean, when you're in the shop and you're creating, I mean, are you listening to music? What is your process like when you're in the zone?
I do have music playing usually, for sure.
Let me guess. You also smoke a big fat joint, and you.
No.
Okay. So
No,
fine. You don't smoke the joint. You just do the heroin. I get it.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. I've got those old syringes that I had left.
That's right.
Fill them up and get things going right. It's a good joke for sure.
What music are you listening to when you're in the shop creating?
I just put 5 discs in there on carousel, and it'll play random things off of them. So, I mean, openly, one's a Wilco disc, one's U2, one is the soundtrack from Twilight, because it has music
Love it.
on it.
Yeah, sure.
The Fix, the old band, The Fix is on here. And sometimes I'll just hook the phone up to the stereo so that it's playing. But if it's off, I realize, like, I know I don't like silence. That's my ears
interesting.
ring. Yeah, I mean, my ears ring a lot. Remember, I said I work in a mill. I hunt and shoot.
Occupational hazard. Yeah,
I've had a drummer sitting to my left all night banging on a snare drum. Yeah, that's like so my left ear rings a lot worse than the right. But I mean, if I'm in dead silence, it is a loud ringing. So I do have hearing aids that are awesome. But if I go to sleep, I have a white noise machine sitting there.
Sure.
Just that peaceful and the hearing aids have a white noise on them too, so that I don't hear that when I'm in silence. So yeah, I really don't like silence. So I have to have music going on here. It feels a lot more comfortable.
Sure.
If it's dead silence, all of a sudden, I don't know what it is. You'll stop and just start looking around like, what the hell am I doing? It's almost like I get lost without it. It's just, it's calming in the background. And
absolutely.
Do you listen to whatever?
Do you listen to podcasts at all?
No, I haven't. I really haven't.
Well, you got to start now because, you're officially a guest on a podcast. So this is, when this episode of Not Real Art comes out, you'll officially be a podcast listener.
It's awesome. I mean, I was nervous. I mean, I'll tell you, because I've never done this. I had it on my phone.
That makes 2 of us, my friend.
Scott Power, 12 o'clock. Like, okay, it's going to happen. And I didn't know. Like I said, I don't know if we were just going to talk over the phone or I'm really thankful, and I totally appreciate you.
You are more than welcome. You are more than welcome, and no reason to even thank me, because you're doing me the honor by being on, because the podcast, Not Real Art, the vision for it and why we created it is to celebrate people just like you, and people like me, people whose whole lives have been driven by kind of an obsession for art in our lives, for culture in our lives, for creativity in our lives. We are sort of, it's a blessing and a curse, but we have this, ability to see things that aren't there and manifest them. And if we don't, we drive ourselves crazy. And so, Not Real Art, the podcast is a celebration of creative culture and the creative class. And we want to talk to artists of all levels. I mean, sure, we want to talk to artists who are full-time artists that are showing in galleries, and that's all that they do. But we also want to talk to everyone, everyone else who's finding joy in their lives, in creating art in any number of ways, whether it's performance art on the stage as a musician, or whether it's, fabricating lamps in a home studio in the Midwest, whatever the case is, artists are everywhere. And, quite frankly, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast, and by the way, if you go and you listen to episode 50, I'm talking to another artist from Chesterton, a friend, someone I've known for a very long time, a gentleman by the name of David Ryan Scott. And David is an incredible woodworker. He's an incredible, he makes, but he's been doing these leather goods, fabricating all kinds of beautiful things out of leather. And he makes lamps too out of wood but it's all handmade stuff, and there's no glue or there's glue, but there's no screws or nails in his work. It's all fitted joints, and it's just beautiful stuff. And how many folks, artists, designers, makers, creators, whatever you want to call them, who would do the stuff anyway, whether or not they were on a podcast, they would be doing it anyway, whether or not they got paid.
Yeah.
They can't help themselves. But quite frankly, I don't care if you're an artist in LA or an artist in Chesterton, Indiana. Being an artist is a lonely existence a lot of the times. Musicians are more, music is a more social thing. Maybe musicians have, vibrant social lives.
Yeah.
For that. But majority of artists who work with their hands, they're alone in their studio. It's a lonely existence. And we need more community in the arts. Part of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast was to create an opportunity to bring artists together to help to empower and support that community, begin having new conversations, and also creating the opportunity for artists to learn from one another, but also understand they're not alone, that they're having a lot of the same struggles. And by the way, just because you live in Indiana or Illinois or Ohio or wherever, you should be connected to and have a platform to tell your story globally as well. And so, we want to talk to artists, all kinds of artists. We want to talk to all levels of artists. We have a very big tent that we're trying to fill under the Not Real Art banner, because Not Real Art at its core is democratic. Not Real Art at its core is anti-establishment. Is independent. We don't give a fuck about people spending $191 million for a Jeff Koons bunny. That's 20 inches tall or something. That's great. God bless them. They can have that world. I'm interested in independent artists who are out there on the front lines, in the struggle of what it means to, well, first of all, create something original, but also then try to monetize it. I mean, that's, it's the hardest thing in the world to own a successful small business. And that's what artists are, right?
Yeah. When you say monetize, when I first started to sell those things, the one artist says, "Oh, you should charge $500 for this." And I'm like, there's no way, and then everyone always says, "Well, if you could get it to Chicago, they pay a lot more for stuff there." And the person from Spill the Milk told me, the owner, she said, "What would you pay for it?" And I'm like, probably $150, $200. Okay, then that's what it is.
Right.
So it's hard. It's very hard to put a price on things. That clock that I was telling you about, that tall one I spent hours on, it's a masterpiece. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
And the hearing aid guys, I've worked on their guitars and things, they saw it. And they've done things for me, and I appreciate them. So I just said $500. And when he got it, he even said, "Man, you really undersold this," which kind of made me feel a little awkward.
Yeah, that's good. By the way, just keep your thoughts to yourself. Your thoughts are none of my business,
I know.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I probably did, but that's the thing. I had told you, I don't have a website. I had some cards made for a first time ever. So it's such a small scale that I wish that, I do need to get a website. I do want people everywhere to see this, and it's not for money. I don't care about the money of it. I really don't.
You're such an artist.
You know what I mean? I would love to have a piece in Europe. Okay, this guy in Europe's got one. That feels good. You're spreading out on the globe. So,
well, look, I mean, it's the whole pricing money thing, and this is a rabbit hole topic that we could go deep on. But
yeah,
you're in a unique situation because you have a full-time job that pays the bills. So money for you vis-a-vis your art, it takes on a different priority.
Yeah.
Right.
And I didn't mean to interrupt, but if I had to make these, if it got to where I talked to a guy that owns the Alley, Mark Thomas, in Chicago, and he said, "Hey, make a bunch of these for me for around $100." And I'm like, then I have to do it. If I had to do this for a living,
Not fun anymore.
It would totally feel different.
Right.
I think.
Right. No, that's it. And, the David Ryan Scott, the guest from episode 50, same thing. I mean, he has no interest in making these in mass or, selling them. I mean, he makes them for family and friends and special people in his lives. He masters making a thing. He'll make a few of them and then he kind of moves on to the next thing. I mean, it's really just therapy for him because money isn't a priority in that context because he has a job, but many artists don't. And, we talk about this a lot and with artists and, what is something worth? What is, what should they charge? And then, of course, savvy, smart business people they do not hesitate to exploit artists and take advantage of their passion and try to get them to do it for little money or no money. So artists are exploited all the time. It's an important topic, and it's something that I think, we need to demystify and we need to expose and to sunlight and just put it out there because one of the things artists have to understand is that as soon as they agree to do their work for little to no money, they are devaluing the work of all artists and designers, right? From the get-go.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to understand that for starters, right? That way we can, because we need to start establishing a bottom and a ceiling, a floor and a ceiling in terms of how pricing goes and what have you. One of the things I appreciated about in the floor can't be free. The floor has to be a minimum wage, right? What is the minimum wage, right?
Definitely. Your time and your materials.
Time, materials, labor, and one of the things that you were talking about the price of some of your stuff. And, you price to sell, and that's the other thing too. It's like the other thing too is like you want to price to sell. It's more important to be moving inventory and bringing money in than it is to just have the stuff sit there because it's overpriced or whatever. Now, how do you price something? And, you hit the nail on the head. What's the materials? Like, what are your material costs for this thing?
Yeah. And
right?
I don't think you really get your time.
Well, here's the thing, right? That's one of the, if you want, for starters, yes, it is hard to track how many hours you have in an item. That being said, that's not good enough. If an artist wants to make money and and pay their bills, I'm not talking about getting rich. I'm not talking about I'm talking about making ends meet, paying your bills, having a life that you can afford to eat and afford to keep your lights on. Like if you want to pay your bills and not be stressed because around money issues, then you need to track your hours. You need to track how many days you have in a project, right? Yeah. And we have a podcast many episodes ago. We sort of talk about this because I think we tend to overthink it. I tend to think that it can be simpler. So for example, the model I sort of talk about, it's like, if you're a full-time artist in whatever medium, and again, listen, I understand that there are exceptions to every model, and I understand that a cookie cutter solution doesn't necessarily always work for every situation, but you got to find a model that works for most situations. And a model that I think works is ask yourself how much money you want to make in a year, right? It's like, okay, I want to make $100,000. Okay, cool. 100 grand's a lot of money. That's great. Now, how are you going to get there? Okay, well, how many hours in a week? Or how many hours in a year? How many hours in a month? How many hours in a week? Am I going to work a 40-hour week, 50-hour week? Okay, let's say I'm working a 40-hour week. Well, what does that work out per hour? Figure out what your hourly wage is. If you want to make $100,000 that year, and I'm just making up numbers right now, but let's say it's $30 an hour. Okay, well, $30 an hour. I have 16 hours in this lamp. Well, 16 times 30. Okay, that's your base, right? That's your time. Then you figure in the materials. And then, I always say add a third for pure profit, because some people are always going to negotiate. They're going to want to pay cash and get 10% off. They're going to want to, debate you and negotiate a lower price on something. So you need room to negotiate. So if something, if your time is worth $100 and your materials are $100, then I say add another $100 for pure margin.
Yeah.
And it's $300. And, and I think most reasonable consumers, if the price seems reasonable and feels reasonable, they know it's reasonable, and you can have a more meaningful conversation around, and there's no shame in the game that way. Artists can know, like, look, I'm not trying to get rich here. This is a fair price.
Yeah.
I've got 8 hours. I bill at, $30 an hour. I've got $100 material. And based on all my costs and calculations, I'm pricing this at $300.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's really interesting. I get super frustrated with artists who simply just want to, say they're an artist, put their head in the sand, and then complain that they're not making any money. It is, and by the way, the system is set up in many ways. I mean, how many school students graduate with not a fucking clue about how to make money in the art world?
Yeah,
they know how to make art, they just know how to make money.
Yeah, I don't know if they teach that in art school.
No, they don't. They absolutely don't. And I think systemically, certainly in the kind of the blue chip art world, it's sort of designed into the system. Like, they don't necessarily want artists to be business savvy, because when a Jeff Koons sells for $191 million, the artist, I mean, Jeff Koons is a gazillionaire, but I'm just saying, like, most artists that are at auction or making that kind of, when we talk about these big numbers, artists don't see any of that. They sold that original piece for $5,000 or $20,000, and now it's going at auction or it's going somewhere for $2 million, and they don't see any of that. That's how the world works.
Yeah.
Right now, and you're not going to change it. That's just its own world. But the way you can make it better is by creating other options and alternatives for artists to monetize their work and make money, and give them other models and ideas to work with, to feel confident that their pricing is rational and that it's defensible.
Yeah.
Right. Because most artists don't want to feel like, I don't want to have to defend my price, and listen, I mean, some folks are just never going to get it and not do it. But I think the artists that, embrace the reality of the world that we live in and paying bills and the need for money, they're going to have to figure it out, and they will figure it out. Otherwise, they're going to work at Starbucks or, on the side and bitch and moan about that,
Yeah. You probably know many artists. There's a guy here in Chesterton named Wayne Thornton. He has a restaurant.
I know Wayne.
Wayne?
I know Wayne.
You've seen Wayne's work with what he does with his fingers, his paints and everything. I see that and I think, man, he should be a millionaire, but he's not like that. He doesn't really want that, And you wouldn't complain, I guess, if you got it, but
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, exactly. Right. Nobody's going to complain if they hit the jackpot, or get paid a lot of money to do what they love to do anyway, and would be doing anyway. Yeah. But it's, everybody's, got different motivations and what have you. I just, part of the reason why I wanted to start the podcast is because one of the challenges artists have in making money is getting the word out, telling their story, getting their story out to the world. It's hard to promote. It's hard to, the dirty little secret about, the digital economy is, sure, you can have a website. Sure, you can, sell your art to the world via your website. But that also means that you have to be a digital marketer to effectively sell your artworks around the world via your website using e-commerce. And artists don't want to deal with that shit.
No, I know nothing about.
So the fantasy is one thing, the reality is another. And so my hope with the podcast is that eventually we can grow it and get to a point in terms of what we're doing with Not Real Art more broadly, creating a platform that helps artists empower them and gets their story told more broadly, so that if somebody hears your podcast, hears this podcast and they think that, wow, Michael's work sounds really cool. They can go to the website and buy something, the website that you're working on that you don't yet have, but you're going to do. And then they'll hear the podcast, then they'll go and they'll look at your website and buy something, all because we helped broadcast your story to the world. And that's one of those elements in business that artists need, any business needs. Marketing, promotion, storytelling. And it's hard for artists to do that beyond their local market. I mean, you sell really well in your backyard because, Chicago's in your backyard. It's a great market. That's great. Maybe that's all you need.
Yeah.
Right. But with a podcast and a website, suddenly people all over the world could theoretically, own a Michael Moore creation.
Yeah. And I'd absolutely love that. And
Right.
is it a plug to say I don't have a website? All I have is the Facebook page.
Absolutely. Tell people where they can find you on Facebook.
It's called More Gadgets, Moore Gadgets. And that's it. You go on Facebook, More Gadgets, and there's videos that show the ones moving, talking, and flashing. And there's a lot of pictures of things I've done. And usually when I make something, I put it on there, show the name of it. That's all I have for exposure really right now. So,
well, look, Facebook is, Facebook is global. It's huge. I mean, if you're leveraging Facebook alone and you're doing it well, you could be very effective at it, but it is an art form unto itself. Digital marketing, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or via your website, that is a specialty and an expertise unto itself. Right.
Yeah.
And that's, again, the dirty little secret. It's like, a lot of people don't know this, but the average tenure for a chief marketing officer at a publicly traded company today is about 19 months. Right. So why is it 19 months? Well, it's 19 months because marketing is harder than ever. And if a CMO at a publicly traded company can't, figure it out, what chance do we have?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the sort of dirty little secret in the fantasy versus reality of like, yes, marketing is more robust than ever, and it's easier for small businesses to market to the world and bring their products to the world and all of that. Back in the day when there was just print, radio, and television, it was much harder, much more expensive. And it's wonderful. Many of these things are wonderful, but nothing's a silver bullet, right? You still have to do the work. And in this case, the work is challenging because there are many platforms. They change the algorithms all the time. How do you keep up? And it's no wonder artists just want to, not bother. Hell, I barely want to bother. And, and I like this shit. It's like.
Yeah, I know a couple people that did graphic art or design, and they don't do it anymore. There's two houses from me right now.
Yeah.
The person worked out of their house there, and she's done with that because anybody can go online and you can create your own posters or designs and logos, and it doesn't cost you anything. So that's just too bad. It's good for the people that want it, but then the people that create it, they just don't get to do it anymore.
Well, exactly, and it's a very interesting time on many levels. This era that we live in. So what? So for young artists out there, or old artists out there who are just getting started, what advice, if any, would you give people out there who are, they're frustrated in their job. Maybe they secretly have a passion for some art form that they're not indulging. Do you have any advice that you would give, like your son? Like if your son came to you and said, "Dad, I want to be an artist," what would you tell him?
I read a long time ago someone I've stuck in my head for sure. If you want to draw, if you want to paint, then paint. Get the blank white sheet of paper out and start drawing on it and paint on it. The art that I draw, that these blueprints go with, it's all done with just a pen. And I've never been an artist that way as far as drawing goes, but people see these drawings and they love them because they have their own thing to them. So that would be the best advice is if you want to do this, to do it. There's so many people that say, I wish I could draw. You just start doing it, and it's who's to say if it's bad or good? You don't know. So that's a big part of it. And it's kind of a natural thing too. It has to be something that you do enjoy doing. I mean, that's pretty simple, I would say. So they always say, follow your passions,
Well, what I'm hearing, what I appreciate about what you're saying, it's like, it's like, don't hesitate, just try, just go, just experiment,
Yeah. I had never drawn much at all, and I enjoy it now. And I like the way it looks, it's its own little thing. So I guess that's it. Well, oddly at a loss for words on that.
Well, I put you on the spot, and that's my that you can blame me. That's what I do here. That's my job to put people on
The
the spot. The
sourdough.
sour.
Did it.
That's right. That's it. God damn it. Well, Michael, I'll tell you what. I'm so grateful that we were able to hop on the line here via Skype and to chat a little bit about the work that you're doing. I want to talk to you about offline about commissioning one of your lamps because I just love it and I want it in my office. I want it near me so that it makes me happy and I can look at it and smile. I also want to talk to you offline about. Looks like we may be leasing a space to think of it as the Not Real Art Studio, where we're going to be recording the podcast and doing live streaming and video work and what have you. We're going to really double down on kind of our YouTube channel, what have you. And but we're going to have art in the space, and the art all will be for sale by appointment only. We're not going to have retail hours, but we're going to feature artists on the show. We're going to feature their art on the show. And people will be coming in all the time. Obviously, they'll be able to see through the window. They'll, see cool art. They'll see on the window that it's, by appointment only. So I want to talk to you about having a couple of lamps in the space here in Los Angeles. Would you be interested in that?
Yes, absolutely. How could I say no? I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
Well, I get told no all the time. So that's usually my wife fighting me off at midnight, but that's a whole nother podcast. Well, that's cool. I'm super glad that you are down with that because I think it'd be really interesting, like market research for you as well, right? I mean, getting a couple of lamps here in LA, seeing how they resonate, with the creative folks here. And also, thinking about pricing. I mean, because in this case, right, we'll have the price, and then we'll have some shipping, and we'll have these other kinds of elements to it, and so I think we'll get good intel for you, right? Like what sells, what doesn't sell, what people are into, what people aren't into, and what price points work. I think that'll be super helpful to you, and you'll be in a new market here in Los Angeles. So I look forward to that.
I can't thank you enough, really. Like I said, I was nervous about this because I've never done it, but I really appreciate you, reaching out to me and what you're doing for all the people that you're doing it for. I mean, it's good. It's a great thing.
Thank you, brother. Well, I appreciate that. And listen, my favorite people in the world have always been, my whole life have been artists, whether they were musicians or visual artists or performing artists or dancers or what have you. I think, artists, and I include myself in this, we're a special breed. And, why should athletes and celebrities and politicians and billionaires get all the acclaim when, it's we artists and designers and creatives and makers who are, in many ways driving culture forward. And, when we need to come together, we need to celebrate that. We need to lift each other up, and we need to do it no matter where we're at. And, being a proud Midwesterner. I mean, I live in this crazy land of Hollyweird, but I am a proud Midwesterner. And, the fact that I could maybe do anything here that would then benefit folks that I know back home. God damn it. I'm going to build a bridge as fast as I can because I want to help my peeps too. I want to lift up the folks that I grew up with as well. And if we can help each other, we should help each other. And no matter where artists were. Hell, I was in Haiti. I've been in Haiti a couple of times doing some charitable work there over the last few years. And there are artists in Haiti that I would love to help. I mean, no matter where you are, if your heart is pure and you're doing work that is meaningful, it deserves to be celebrated. And that's what we want to do with Not Real Art. So anyway, well, thank you for coming on, Michael. This was a treat, and we'll do it again. Absolutely.
Awesome. I'm ready anytime. It's great. I thank you again. You're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. That's what it is. So
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it because we ain't making no money. I can tell you
Nope.
that. The people might have noticed this podcast is advertising free, commercial free, which, we want to keep it that way. But anyway, Michael, you have a fantastic day, my friend. Get to work on my lamp. We will, I want to have this thing. And by the way, when I finally do get it, we'll definitely come back and have a show where we talk about the lamp specifically. But in the meantime, people can find you on Facebook. You said under More Gadgets is your Facebook page.
yeah,
And I want to tell all the listeners to be sure to check out Michael's work. If you like work that has soul, that has an eclectic, delightful nature to it, a whimsy, but also, harkens back to a more kind of industrial age of metal and glass and wood, and maybe a little blood, sweat, and tears. You're gonna love Michael's stuff. So definitely check it out. All right, my friend. Thanks for playing.
all right. Thank you, man.
Cheers. Be well.
All right.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to like this episode and share it with your friends on social. And if you haven't already done so, please be sure to press subscribe and follow us on IG at Not Real Art Official. We appreciate the support. Sourdough out.